Hey y'all, welcome back to Convos with Bree. I'm Bree, BREE, and today is day 53 of the Visibility Challenge. And today I am talking about something that I love to talk about, but it is such a hot button issue for some people. And I have had a lifetime of people being upset with me for talking about this, but that has never shied me away from it. So today I want to talk about religion. I have tried for a lifetime to be religious in a societal sense. I have tried to go to church numerous times. I have been friends with people that absolutely love church. I have tried to read the Bible and to understand this aspect because I love the idea of church. I always have. But it took me a very long time to finally accept that what I am looking for, what I think in my brain that church should be, it is not. It just is not. I have been to so many different versions of church. And y'all, this started when I was very young. One of my best friends growing up, his whole family was religious. And they asked me to go to church with them one day. And I was thrilled. I was like, this is where I find my people. This is where I come to life. This is where I am accepted and I can ask my questions and we can dive in and we can do something here. And I was ready. And then I had questions and I tried to ask my questions and they just told me it wasn't time for questions. And I asked, well, when will it be time for questions? And they said, after the service. So after the service, I was like, who do I talk to about all of this? Where can I go to have a discussion about this? Like, I'm ready. I'm ready. I am locked and loaded. I have so many questions. And at first, they were like, excellent. Let's talk it out. Because I was a kid, I was a young kid, and they figured my questions would be stupid and just easy to push off. Well, I came out the gate with some bangers, y'all. Like like things that did not make sense in my brain for, well, judgment and love and all of these enlightened things you are supposed to be, but this story was all about the opposite. So like what's happening here? Why are we basing hate off of this judgment when we're not supposed to judge and we're supposed to love our neighbor and we're supposed to be so empathetic and kind? And then they've decided it was never going to be time for questions. Not my questions anyway, because they didn't have a way to explain it. And probably some of those adults went home thinking, oh, that girl's got a point. I was like 8 years old or something. And then they asked me not to come back to church at 8 years old. They said, I don't think this is the church for you. I think you should find another one. The leaders of the church kicked an 8-year-old out of church. So I wasn't allowed to go back with my friend anymore. And nobody else that I knew went to church. Well, then there was a group of kids in my school that were all religious and they had formed a group. And one of the boys that I thought was so cool had asked me to join. So I was like, heck yes, I will. And the first day I showed up and I said, I have so many questions. And I started asking these questions because I had also seen these same kids be hateful and mean towards other people who didn't believe what they believed in. And I I had a lot of questions about how they could be so religious and so spiritual and so connected to God, and yet they could treat people like this. And I wanted to understand how it was okay for them, but it wasn't okay for non-believers. Well, they didn't like my questions either. I was genuinely curious. I was not coming at anyone in a negative way. And they told me immediately this wasn't the group for them or for me, that I was no longer allowed to be a member of this group. I didn't even last 10 minutes before I was kicked out of this group. And I no longer thought that kid was very cool. And then he started dating a friend of mine, and she was no longer my friend. And that hurt my soul because we had been the best of friends. I was at her house every day. And then all because I had questions, real, genuine, building questions that they could have taken and become better people because of. We could have dove in deeper. We could have connected with non-believers and been kinder and better and more understanding. And we could have been more of what I thought the Bible was saying it wanted. But yet, everyone I met that was preaching the words of the Bible wasn't living this. Then I had family members that got involved in church. And so I tried to go with them. And I had another guy that was kind of like, I don't know, it felt like he was maybe interested in me and I was maybe interested in him, but we didn't really have a lot of time together. So he invited me to church, and I thought this would be a great place for us to see if we had the same foundational beliefs and if we would be a good fit and if we would actually be more than just friends. And this church was supposed to be so open and so loving, and all is welcome. There are, everyone sins here. So it's like there's nobody that is perfect, and we don't want perfect people. But then I found that they were still judging everyone. They were not loving. They were not kind. They were fake. And it really upset me also because, listen, every time I have been involved in anything, I tried to go to youth group for a while at these churches. The music was banging, y'all. I have it in a bin downstairs. But I was at a religious concert with a friend of mine. I think it was like 6th or 7th grade, maybe. And we were on the front page, like at this concert. And I look angelic. I was not, I was just enjoying the music. And I was having such a good time. And I loved all of this. Like, I really thought that this was going to be like this whole awesome life for me. And I really enjoyed like the concerts and how they did things. And I was excited. And then I just kept getting banned from everything. And it was like, I just want to know. And I just want to meet people that are actually understanding of what religion really is. It's being spiritual. It's getting your own messages from the universe, from God, from whatever you call it. It's all okay. It's all okay because you are walking your own unique path. Some of the sinners that I know, self included, we had to walk these paths of sin to understand our fellow sinners of the same types of things, the same emotions, the same substances, the same confusion. And you can't understand something until you've truly walked through it. And then you know that even if two people walk a very similar path, it's still going to look different for both of them. It's going to be unique for both of them. But how are we supposed to connect and build bridges and have these deeper connections and this true community if all we're really doing is judging silently or behind their backs or whatever? That's not connection. That's not love. That's not enlightenment. That's not religious in any sense. I mean, honestly, for me and all of the experiences that I've had, when I think of backstabbing, judgmental, horrible humans, a lot of them are in these societal churches. And I think that a lot of us feel that same way. I know that there's still a lot of us that are in the churches that are still just looking for this community, or they're afraid to leave these communities, or they're afraid to expand their beliefs. But that's because their church has been so controlling. That is because their church is not allowing them to have their own unique path and to receive their own unique messages. Instead, they are controlling them under the guise of love and connectivity, and they're hiding behind religion, behind the Bible, behind God, behind Jesus, behind all of it. That is not religion. That is human control. It is human interpretation of something. And they are just saying that their belief is higher than everyone else's. They're small-minded. They have no room for expansion. That's been my personal experience. I was even in this youth group in junior high, and I loved it. It was one of my favorite nights of the week, other than going to skate park. That was my number one favorite night of the week. But youth group was like a high second because my friends were there. Again, Jesus jams are elite, y'all. They are bangers. And they let me like stand on the back of the couch and just like jam and sing my face off. And I was like, this is what I'm living for. Okay. This was it. I was having such a good time. And everyone there was so dorky like me. Like, they didn't care. They wanted to sing their face off. They didn't care about looking stupid. We were having a good time jamming with Jesus. And then I was incredibly spiritual, incredibly psychic. I could communicate with the other side. I could literally, somebody could think about something and I could know what they were thinking of. I would get images in my brain from their brain. I was so intuitive. It was such a gift. And I didn't know that because so many people made me feel like I had to hide it because they said it was actually the work of the devil. And we were at youth group one day, and a group of friends of mine wanted to test it. And I had confided with them that I could do this, but that I don't really tell people because people think it's so weird. And I'm kind of scared of what people will do with this information. And they said, we're safe here. We're youth group, we're safe. And they wanted to see if I could picture what this person was picturing about their room. Now, everyone else had been in this girl's room. I was the only one. I had never been to her house. So I told them all to think about aspects of the room and like really visualize them. So like if there was a piece of blow up furniture, think about the color, think about the placement, what posters were around it. Like get as descriptive as you could. And I was in that room. I was looking around, and between all of their energy, I could see everything. And it was so cool. It was the first and only time in my life I had ever done something in this way, this clearly. And I was excited because these were some of my best friends. So for me, I was thinking, wow, they're going to help me unlock this. They're going to help me hone in on this talent of mine. I'm going to be able to do this with everything. And the youth group leader, who I loved and admired and respected so much, I trusted him like top tier human. I could trust him with anything. Comes over and said, "Are you currently engaging in the devil's work over here?" And I said, "No, there's nothing devilish about this. It's all beautiful." And I feel like this is like God speaking to me, telling me that this is a talent that I can use for so many beautiful things. And I am excited. I look at my friends' faces and they are all like terrified. And they're like, "Well, Bree just said she could do it." And I'm like, "Oh, you guys made me do this and now I'm on my own." Like, what? What? And why am I getting in trouble for something that I feel I'm being directed to in this beautiful way? And then he said, "You can't come to youth group anymore. You're no longer allowed to be at this youth group." And I was devastated, absolutely devastated. I could not believe I was getting kicked out of this place. I had so many days under my belt of being inspirational and fun and making the youth group like exciting and bringing this enjoyment that was like contagious to everyone else. I had like 12 new people that started coming just because I was telling them how great it was. And I wasn't planning on stopping that. And they all left when I wasn't there because they were like, "Well, if you can't be there, I certainly can't be there." Like one girl gave that same kid that I was talking about that kicked me out of that first group. He was like trying to get a hand job from her at youth group. And it was like, "Yeah, but I'm the bad one." Okay. And they're like, "Well, if I'm obviously going to hell if you're going to hell." Like I'm doing way worse stuff than you are. And so then we just became this little band of misfits and we weren't religious. And I went all in the other way. Like, I'm done. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in power. I don't believe in like magical powers. I don't believe in anything. And I started drinking. I started smoking weed. I started smoking cigarettes. I started partying. I stopped giving a shit about anything. Because if you listen to my second book or you read it, Young Writer's Day, you know I was getting this shit from every respected area of my life. My teachers, youth group, churches, like nobody, everyone was just a letdown, honestly. Everyone was just a letdown. They were making things so serious and so terrible in places that should have just been fun and exciting and filled with growth and great conversations and opportunities. But they were all so small minded and they just sucked, if I'm honest. And I didn't want to be a part of that. And the people that I got drunk with, y'all, we had great conversation. We were talking about life and magic and how in control we are of our own path and things we had been through and where it led us. And just it was more expansive getting high in a room full of burnouts than church ever was for me. And so I loved those people so much that I wanted to rebel against anything that couldn't see their magic and couldn't see how wonderful they were and how deep they were and how expansive they were. And instead, they made them feel like they were nothing. They were trash. They were worthless. And then I had a friend who came to me not that long ago, and she needed a conversation about a really rough spot that she was in. And she had found religion and she found a church, and she was really into her relationship with God. And I kept trying to tell her that a relationship with church is not a relationship with God. It's important that you find your own path, though. So I couldn't like push too hard. I didn't want to derail her from learning. So I went to church with her a few times, and everyone was nice enough. It was still the same thing that I had seen over and over, and there was no questions asked. But they were cool, and it 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 was fine. It was a fine experience. I didn't get kicked out. I knew how to be. I couldn't be me, but I knew how to just be there for her in support of this. And then one day, her and her partner were really struggling. He was very abusive and manipulative, and she had been going back and forth for years, trying to figure out if she could love him and change herself enough that he could love himself enough and change himself with her, or if he would be the demise of her. And every time she would think they were 10 steps forward, he would slide 20 steps back. And she just got to a point where she felt like she had exhausted all resources, and she just didn't see this getting any better. And she was understanding that if she stayed with him, she would never get to leave this very small box. And she was really understanding for the first time in her life how magical she truly is, and how she can't even be in a box, let alone stay in one forever. Like, she's not a box. She's literal magic on earth, and she's just getting started. And she would have to say goodbye to that to stay in this very small-minded relationship. She tried one last effort and got the church involved because they were both very committed to the church. So she thought that they would give great advice and be able to help him. She was looking for them to be a place for him to check in and get the help that he needed, and the support and the love and the guidance. And instead, they reprimanded her and made it all about how she needs to respect him as a leader. And they did nothing really for what she needed. And they still made her feel like she was the one that was less deserving because she didn't have God in her life the way that he did. She didn't grow up the way that he did. And she really struggled, and she lost herself. She ended up losing her way with God. She ended up feeling alone and unsure of quite a few things. And I know that feeling very well because, like I said, I've been dealing with this my whole life. And I've seen this on others and on myself time and time again. So I certainly connected with her and bonded over that and helped to strengthen the understanding that this was all part of the plan. This and what she does with it is where the magic is, where her unique path is. This is for her to connect in a greater way with more of the collective energy, because she is certainly not alone in it. I really understand more deeply now that I was never going to get what I was looking for out of a church. A church, to me, is like the Bible. It's a human interpretation. And they are doing what they think needs to be done. They are moving in societal learned ways. They are based on judgment and money and greed and power and everything that religion and spirituality should not be. I walked away from trying to ever find this unicorn church that I was looking for with my unicorn community. And I started connecting with the trees, with the clouds, with the air, with the life that was happening around me, putting my feet in the grass, feeling the ground. I started getting more immersed in nature. And that is really true when I went out on the road. We would find ourselves in the middle of the desert where nothing was. And it was so vast and so expansive and so beautiful. And seeing the ocean and hearing the waves and finding these meadows that were just little streams and tall grass and beautiful trees and big fluffy clouds. And I could hear the messages. I could see the path. I could understand my own purpose in this life. And I started to become more loving, more patient, more soft, more empathetic, more enlightened consistently. And I realized I was never going to find that in an external source. I needed to understand that to be truly religious, it is to be so connected within. It is to be so connected to every piece of your path, every part of your journey, understanding that because you were one way at one time, it does not mean that you are destined for this scarlet letter burned into you. It just means that you're actually more adaptive. You are more able to connect. You are actually the thing that would have been created because you build bridges to love, to empathy, to enlightenment, to peace, to all of this. You help people not hate themselves, not hate their experience. You help them find their way home to themselves. And when you come home to yourself, that's when you come home to your messages. That's when you can see what it is you're really here to do. You can do that more confidently. You can do that more clearly. But when you're looking for external sources to tell you what you're supposed to be feeling and seeing and doing spiritually, religiously, that's just someone else's interpretation of your life. That's not your own. That's control. That's not love. It's control. It's human interpretation. And nobody knows better than you know. But even you can't know what is for you until you start to undo all of what's been put on you by others, by society, by learned behaviors, by learned pressures, by all of this. So we strip ourselves down. We bare our soul. That is when we are born. That is when we come into what we're here to do. It's not a midlife crisis. It's literally a deeper connection to self. And you can do this multiple times. You can do this as many times as you want. You can reinvent. You can dive deeper. You can strip it all away and start fresh, or start from something that if you thought it was one way and now you have all of this experience, you can totally pivot and go another way because you have all this experience. You could throw all of it out and say, I want to try from scratch. I want to go a totally different way where I know nothing. I want to fail. I want to be new at this. I want to learn. I want to just start all over. You can do anything you want. You just have to connect within. That's when you become religious. That's when you become spiritual. That is when you find your way. And it's beautiful because that never ends. We are ever expansive. Honestly, they were doing me a favor, kicking me out. If I would have let them brainwash me, who knows if I would have made it here. If I would have stayed longer, maybe I would have had a harder time getting away. I'll never know. All I know is what I know. And it doesn't hurt me anymore. It doesn't make me feel like it's a me problem. It makes me see that that just wasn't my path, and that's okay. I'm just religious. This is truly a reminder, y'all, that nothing that is meant for you will miss you. Don't be afraid. Just be here now.